So my name is Vita, and I'm here in Montserrat at my home. And this session today, this live reading and reflection is going to be all about 5 pathways for fair funding for real impact. And, I have been reflecting over this whole 10-year period about, what does it really mean to create impact in conservation? And oftentimes we are faced with, funders and partners may be looking at the metrics, looking at, well, you know, um, uh, what have we done and who have we impacted? What changes have we made? And because that we have done X project, we have created X results, right? But sometimes, especially working in small island states, the results and the impacts is so much more nuanced, and it's so much more nuanced because sometimes people don't really come from the same starting point. We don't have to come from the same starting point where, you have the education, the awareness around, how to write a grant, how to satisfy a funder, or how to do the proper reporting, right? That gets you the money, how to tell the story that gets you the money. And sometimes it takes some of us a long time to figure that out. I know for myself, starting this work in ocean science and conservation, I didn't have anyone to really sort of create a pathway for me or, give me examples of how we do this correct or do it for me or anything like this. I had to figure it out the hard way. I had to create those paths myself. And even when I had people in my corner who were willing to share information and not gatekeep, then I still didn't even know what to ask, right? Because for me, someone coming from a very non-conventional background into ocean conservation, it was difficult. And so I think that really, we need to relook at how we're funding local communities, locally led, community based organizations, and really looking at what that means as well. Because there is a difference between an expat organization that comes to an island to do conservation, for example, that is local, that may even be resident, and an organization who is created and birthed by a native person. The realities are two very different. You're walking in very different shoes. um, you know, we have different types of responsibilities, different types of expectations, and the funding story needs to be adapted accordingly. So that was a bit of a big intro. And again, if you have been following my newsletter, you will see I've shared a link to this particular paper. And if you are new to this, I just want to share a little bit about what I do. Right. So today I have been working at our clubhouse, and I've been doing preparing for the season. If you're on YouTube, you will see our clubhouse. You will see that this is a really cool beachfront space that you can come and stay and you can work if you want to do science, if you want to do art, if you want to just hang out and visit Montserrat. But for me, I am really designing and managing field work that is I design field work that deliver measurable and lasting impacts, and I produce local impact stories and creative content here in the Caribbean. And I also sort of advise organizations, leaders, visionaries, and governments on authentic, equitable partnerships in ocean climate work, right? So these are some of the things that I do here. And it's with that background that I bring to you these live readings. So let's jump straight into it. Okay, let's jump straight into it. And my son is here showing me something, but that's okay. I'm good. I'm good. um. So yeah, that's what I do. That's where I come from. And when we look at this sort of blog post that I made in a newsletter looking at 5 ways to really ignite change in conservation funding and leadership. I've stated one point as connecting conservation funders and government leaders to real grassroots initiatives. And I think I was sort of reimagining what this could look like because there was a part of me that, sorry, hold on 1 minute. Ezra, the puppies are on the road. Okay, so we have 4 puppies, 2 dogs, and puppies are currently on the road. I'm keeping them because I'm waiting for a good home for them. So I don't want to just give them away to people who may not be able to take good care of them. So instead, we're keeping them until we find a good home for them. So sometimes, forgive me, they're like having young children, you still have to train them. So what I'm trying to do is to reimagine um what conservation funding and leadership really looks like. And I'm speaking to, you know, early career ocean professionals, but also executives, also international NGOs and their project management teams, for example, or program coordinators, because we really need to reimagine things. And what I was reimagining when I wrote this was imagine a tour company that brings conservation funders and government leaders together with real grassroots initiatives and the world's most aspirational projects. This unique approach aims to shed light on successful and unsuccessful projects, providing valuable insights into how funds are spent and the need for greater creativity, urgency, and long-term financing in conservation. And with this, I'm coming from the space of, you know, um, I think sometimes, especially given the context of what we're doing in small islands as native people, people who have the ocean in their backyard, where we're really trying to create generational progress and things like this, is that you really need to get more connected to people. We need to build those relationships. And it's not just about us trying to build relationships with you, but you also trying to build relationships with us. And I think in that story, what's also missed and really important is understanding from people, NGO leaders, small NGO leaders, grassroots organization, community groups leaders, and so on. Like, what hasn't worked and why hasn't it worked? Why did we fail? Right? I don't think we should be ashamed of speaking about our failures, our frustrations, our mind blocks and roadblocks. And I think in so doing, especially when we're able to bring people into our worlds, this is the only way I believe that we can truly, authentically, and honestly create solutions that actually work for us, right? So I think people need to get uncomfortable, maybe get a bigger budget for engaging on projects, or find people like myself in communities who are well connected to the grassroots and the grass tops that can really get to know people's stories, get to understand how we can help them. One funding organization said to me, and a very equitable funding organization said to me, that they're having challenges. One of the biggest challenges that funders are having is how to give people money, right? Because a lot of the organizations in low and middle income countries, for example, just don't have the financial infrastructure to receive money. But I mean, it's one thing to say that, but if you genuinely want to give folks money, then you put in place a space, the people, and especially if you have the resources to support them in building up that financial infrastructure, right? Because it is that infrastructure that we need to be able to achieve these 2030 goals and be able to really spread the wealth and create the sustainable, long-lasting projects that we all need to be able to take care of our ocean environment, our climate situation, and so forth. So let's reimagine. Let's really think about what's the wildest, dream, wish, route to the solution, and work towards making it happen. And the second point I have here is around going off the grid, embracing real stories and cultural heritage. So this kind of flows into my next point, which is break free from the confines of boardrooms and conference rooms and embark on a journey of discovery. By venturing off the beaten track, we can connect with stories that ignite passion for change. By immersing ourselves in different cultures and experiences, we understand the context and perspectives needed to drive conservation forward. And so I think this is so important as well, is that we really take time to get outside the boardrooms, get outside the conference rooms, and get into community with people. Um, this is really important. Sometimes this week we're having the major climate change conferences happening in Belém, Brazil. But what if we spent money just really exploring the communities that we aim to help, um, being able to really get up close to what it means to be doing, research, be creating solutions. What are some of the real challenges that these countries are happening, and hearing from the people? What does energy equity and justice really look like? Things like this, right? On the ground, we need to be doing stuff like that. And I think we need to be working with, I don't know if it's academia or, again, folks like myself on the ground connected that can help share that information. So, I guess I'm thinking, we need to empower more local actors, more local activists as well. And, imagine, for example, I have this clubhouse, right? I have a clubhouse, which is a beach house, um, that helps to sustain operations in the organization I work, and also to help sustain my livelihood. And imagine if, instead of staying at a hotel or staying at a villa in a very plush part of the island, what if you stay at the beach when you come to the island to scout a project, when you come to the island to, or coordinate a project or to manage one? Stay at the community organization beach house. Stay in a space where there are people that you're going to see every day, like from the elders to the youth. There's people that you'll have a picnic with in the backyard. There's elders that comes to me in the morning that you'll get to really speak to and understand about people, understand about the culture, understand about the nuances of doing this work, understanding what the socio-economic conditions and challenges are for our people. That's like a really great way to ground ourselves. And I think some people do that, but not always. And I just think it's kind of underrated in terms of what we can do and how we can finance people. Like, even like, I'm going a little bit like on a tangent here, but just imagine, even like, you have in your project fund X amount of money to stay at, you could maybe even stay at the Ritz if you want to, right? But you can stay at a Marriott, you know? But what if you choose a small little Airbnb, save that money, and not just save it to go shopping, but to go, I'm not assuming that that's what people do, right? But saving it to donate to a local grassroots organization when you're in that country. These are some of the things that we individually, how us individually can make a difference. This is some of the ways that we can actually help to support grassroots, locally led, community-based organizations in small island states, in staying sustainable. Right? So how do we share the wealth? How do we spread the wealth? Hi, Lisa Hamilton. I'm so happy that you joined. I hope you will stay on. I'm just here talking about some of the work I do. And this is just a live reading of a blog, because I'm all about putting ourselves out there, documenting our stories, sharing our stories, and doing it a lot. So this week, I am just putting myself out there all week, every day, 5 o'clock AST, to share some of my stories and reflections on some of the blogs that I wrote. And this one is about igniting and changing how we fund organizations at the grassroots level for conservation and environmental projects. So I'm really imagining it all, and I don't want to work on broken systems. I feel like we have so many broken systems in this world right now that I am intentionally working with teams, building new systems, new ways of working, new ways of financing myself. And that's one of the reasons why I'm even here doing this live as well. So One of my points was connecting conservation funders and governments to real grassroots initiatives. The other point was like going off the grid, embracing real stories and cultural heritage. I'm here in the Caribbean on this tiny island of Montserrat, and I was just saying I have a beach house. And if people who are looking to organize projects, scout out projects and things like this, who are really interested in environmental work and doing so in small islands, maybe you're thinking about even relocating to a small island community, then actually coming to spaces like this, investing time in community at a beach house that is on a public beach, is a vibe, right? And it also helps us to collect data about how we can better support a community. So, third point is like unveiling the hidden gems, terrestrial and marine conservation groups. So, this again, the next point floors where I say, while social media savvy and seed funding projects often dominate the mainstream, countless lesser known conservation groups um, deserve recognition. And these hidden gems are the world's best kept secrets, significantly impacting terrestrial and marine conservation. It's time to spotlight these unsung heroes and learn from their innovative approaches and failures. And so one of the things I was saying earlier is that we shouldn't shy away from failures, especially when we're trying to give people finance, when we're trying to fund people. It's like really understand too, where have they hit mind blocks and roadblocks. Um, you know, at least if you're still with me, please like up the live if you're still with me, and say where you're from. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to ask them. So about anything. It doesn't matter if it's even related to the topic. But so yeah, lots of times when it comes to environmental and conservation work, there's a kind of celebrity around this as well. And I think a lot of youth are being really sucked up into that engine of what the celebrity of it look like how many people can be influencers, shining spotlights on different activities and different conferences and different initiatives that they're sort of like paid to speak out on, maybe issues and advocacies and so on. But I think sometimes we really run the risk of ensuring that they fully understand the nuanced nature of what some of the challenges are in these small island states with big ocean space that they are trying to help create solutions for. And sometimes that means that we need to scout out for representation, for telling the story. Like more people need to tell the story, like myself, from the grassroots. Um, that is different. And sometimes it may be uncomfortable. Sometimes it may be not as sexy. Sometimes it could be a little bit boring. But it's real life. And I think that we all need to, especially in a world that is so AI generated and like there's so much like pretense of people pretending to be what they aren't, or people silently struggling and pretending that everything's all okay, even in academia, in business development, even like in these so-called blue innovations that are happening. Like some people are really struggling and not really saying like why or the truth of the matter. And I think we all need to tell our stories, share it more often, and that's how we're going to find some of the solutions that we need to see. But going back to young people and the whole idea of, being media savvy and influencers in this space, we really need to, even if you have that platform, really look out for some of those unsung heroes. Look out for the people who are making really big changes and impacting their community. Someone like myself, it was only in the past couple of years that I've even got like nominations to go to major conferences where it would have been so beneficial for me to be able to tell my story, so beneficial for me to be able to connect with people, make partnerships, find finance and opportunities like this. But it wasn't even possible. And I was partly too busy just on the ground doing the work, teaching kids to swim, snorkel, get involved in marine science, keeping our little project, the NGO, up off the ground, and also, looking after my family, my home, my son. So our realities are so different. We're walking in such different shoes when you're talking about native people from small islands, in big ocean states, that we really need to consider those nuances and reimagine a future that is so different and that is more holistic for people as well. So Next point I have was embracing high risk and high reward ideas. And so, in pursuing progress, we must ask ourselves, would we rather settle for functional yet incremental solutions or explore high risk, high reward ideas? And this shift in mindset opens the door to groundbreaking innovations and transformations. It's time to challenge the status quo and embrace the power of daring ideas. And yeah, I mean, sometimes people have ideas in these islands and communities that may seem super high risk, but then it's no more high risk than trying to make clothing out of sargassum seaweed, or I don't know, the next big blue innovation. Um, trying to, I don't know, use stem cells to create an alternative to seafood. It's not necessarily any more expensive or any more high risk to create innovations around sort of social enterprises, right? Because I think a lot of times when you're talking about native and local people, they're often thinking about how to support the community, how to create opportunities, skills, training or businesses that really help to not just create wealth in their own pockets, but also that the overflow can help support other people as well. And sometimes it's just about social innovation. It could be anything really, but it doesn't necessarily have to be some of those high risk blue innovations. And I wish, for example, that blue economy and emerging new markets were looking at beyond tech and really looking at social innovations as well. So that's just another point. But the final point I had here is the crazy idea that we need and a bigger figure is needed in the personnel budget, in our budgets, and long-term funding commitment. I have here championing change in conservation funding and leadership requires a larger HR budget and long-term funding commitment. While it may seem a no-brainer, we need this shift to drive meaningful progress. Asking for unpaid labor makes our labor worth zero, and we can change this. We can ask funders more often to pay more money for labor, especially in small island states, especially amongst people who, are in the grassroots trying to run organizations like myself and Fish and Fins, for example. And we shouldn't apologize when we ask. So those people who have access to control a budget, to write a grant and to decide on what that budget forecast and estimate needs to look like, dare to make your HR budget bigger. And we shouldn't apologize or ask for that. Like, if you have to go to a senior manager and ask, this is why, then just say it's because I'm working to reduce the amount of unpaid and underpaid labor that we ask folks for in our field. Like, say that. Who's going to argue that back, right? They would have a hard time saying no. So I've said that. Written by Vita Wade. I can share my experiences on stories at your next event or directly with your board. Just let me know. I am here on Montserrat. I work remotely. And I wish I could make this a little bit more interesting for you, like edit and sit and pan into like the clubhouse, pan into the ocean and all these things, but I really don't have time. And this is enjoyable for me to just come in and join and share stories. And it's easy. I wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't easy. But if you do want to see more, at Vita FR, Vita for real, it stands for. My son gave me that YouTube name. And if you go there, you'll be able to see more clips of my life here on Montserrat and some of the things we get up to privately as well as in our business and nonprofit. So until next time, stay connected, keep documenting your story, sharing your story, and sharing a lot of them, and do it afraid if you must. Bye.